If you ever checked out Unreal Engine's city sample demo, you probably saw the traffic. It's awesome. All the cars move, they turn on the lanes, everything is working great, and you're thinking, man, I want that for myself. Well, you can have it. That plugin is available in that project for you to grab. But, and I must say but, it is so complicated. Mostly from the lack of documentation or any kind of modern, up-to-date tutorials going step by step what's going on. So while this won't show you how to set up the entire setup for traffic, it should get you started and understanding some things. Because I spent a bit of time troubleshooting and crashing Unreal a lot to hopefully save you the trouble of running into the same headaches that I did. So let me show you how to get it up and running as kind of a base system, so you can have some things moving around tracks. Now, unfortunately, the first thing you're going to need to do is download the city sample demo and actually install it. I know it seems weird to get a plugin, you need to have an entire 100 plus gigabyte project downloaded and installed. Unfortunately, that is the case because for whatever reason, the plugin for traffic and its dependency is only available inside of that project and it's not on Fab. I don't know why. Maybe there's a secret other place you can get it, but that's where I got it. Once you've installed and downloaded the project, the city sample here, you'll have the project. And the main thing we want to do is go to this plugins folder inside of the city sample project. In here, you will see there's a bunch of plugins. One of them is traffic. The other one is a dependency you'll need, which is the rule processor. We need these two plugins. Now, in my case, I am using the 5.7 Unreal version and the 5.7 city sample demo. I do not know if there's changes between the different versions. So anything I'm showing is assuming you're in the latest. You can go ahead and try all of the stuff on previous versions. I just don't know how far back it goes and if things have been updated accordingly for every single version or not. But basically, we need these two. So in your actual project folder here, where you want to actually set up your traffic system, make a new folder if you don't have one already, and by default you won't, and call it plugins. And then go inside the plugins folder. And basically all we want to do is just take these two and copy them into this plugins folder. Once they're copied into the plugins folder, you're going to want to launch your project. Or if you had it open, close it down and reopen it. So make sure that it understands that you just added new plugins in the plugins folder. When you load in the bottom right, you'll have a new plugins are available. You can click manage plugins here or go to edit plugins and you'll open up the same thing. All you need to do is search for traffic. So you see here, traffic, mass and zone graph based vehicle AI traffic system. Go ahead and enable it and then go ahead and restart your engine. Once the engine has been restarted, you will see that the traffic has been enabled and the rule processor has also been enabled. You can see it is a prototype of a rule processor using point clouds for Unreal Engine. Now it says version 1.0, but it also says prototype. Prototype sounds like it's before even experimental, but it's 1.0, so I don't know. I'm assuming it's all still experimental. Otherwise, probably there should be built-in or in Fab. Either way, this is how you can get it. The main thing is we're now set up to actually start setting up the car and everything. Now, I'm going to give you a heads up now. We're going to be making basic cars that move around the course, have a little bit of intersection stuff with some T intersections, but the car's wheels will not move because we're going to be using a quote-unquote low-res version of the cars. As when I tried to set up the high-res one, I ran into a lot of crashes, as in it just nothing worked. So if that's something you want to see down the line, assuming you like this video, let me know in the comments below. But here in a brand new area, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to first right click and go to a blueprint class and I'll grab myself an actor. This is just going to be our basic low car. I'll call this BP underscore car underscore low. I'll open it up. Inside of here, I want to add all the components of the car. In my case, I have a car that I got from Kenny. Kenny has a lot of free assets, which is why I'm using this. And it comes with a separate body and it also has these wheels. Now, the wheels that it comes with, if I drag them out, you'll see their pivot is kind of in the center here. And all I've done is instead of using these, because if these were ever to rotate down the line, they wouldn't rotate correctly. I just created two new versions, one with the pivots in the center of the wheels, as you kind of would expect. So that way, if it goes ahead and rotates, it'll rotate accordingly as it should. So I'll be using these two wheels. But again, the car's wheels aren't going to be rotating anyway because we're not using the high-res version, so it's not a big deal in this scenario. I will show you how to set some of that stuff up though, just in case. To make it easy for myself, I'll just take the body and the two wheels and I'll just drag it into this blueprint and you'll see there's the car's body being placed in and the wheels. Now the wheels I do need to place into their respective locations positions. So something like this should be good. And then I'll just take the two wheels, I'll duplicate them, and I'll move them back. Now, right now, they're just called L and L1. I'm going to rename these to be the respective names. And I think in my case, I actually called them backwards. The left is the right and the right is the left, but that's okay. I'll just name them FR for front right, BR for back right, FL for front left, and BL for back left. So awesome. We have all of the pieces in. This is good to go. Now we need to add the component that actually will be managing the stuff. We'll go ahead and add a component. This is the mass traffic vehicle component. This one right here, mass traffic vehicle. Again, if your plugin is enabled, you should see this here. So go ahead and add it. And then we need to set up this mass traffic vehicle. Onto the construction script, grab the mass traffic vehicle and drag it out. And we need to set up the wheels. So I'm just going to drag out and do set wheel components. So this one right here, set wheel components. Go ahead and drag it in, connect it, and I'll just drag out of wheel components and make array. Because we need to populate all the wheels that come in here. So we have 4 wheels, so 0 to 3. That gives us 4 inputs. And I'll just take our 4 wheels and drag them out. And the order here does matter. It's front to back, left to right. So front left, front right, back left, back right. Just like this, FL, FR, BL, BR. Next thing we need to do is set up the body that kind of takes care of a lot of the logic behind the scenes, it seems, and it's needed for a few other components. So I'll go ahead and drag out the body. And the way that the information is being used is on a custom primitive data. So I'll drag out and search for set custom primitive data float. The data index that we want is actually index 1. So I'll go ahead and plug this in. I'll kind of move it to the right because we're going to need a little bit of room here. But what value do you put in here? Well, it's actually gotten using the mass traffic vehicle plugin. It calculates it itself. All we need to do is right click, search for get packed, and you'll get here, get packed traffic vehicle instance custom data. Unpack vehicle visualization flags and random fraction from packed floats back out to discrete fields. Complicated description. The only thing that you need to understand here is we kind of need this to get this value. And you can see here data index 1, which is why we're setting data index 1 here. So we'll plug that into the primitive component. And from the outpack custom data, we'll just do a break. So just do break mass traffic packed vehicle. It's just a struct. You can even see it here, break. And the only variable in here is a single float. So we can just go ahead and take this and plug it into our value. So in terms of the mesh pieces, this is all we needed. So awesome. But we need to also tell it to be able to be spawned by the mass spawner that we're using to actually spawn all of the cars. And that is through an interface. Again, it comes with a plugin. So up top, I'm going to hit class settings here. And then on the right, under implement interfaces, I'm going to hit the add here. And I'm going to search for mass actor. And you'll see here, mass actor poolable interface. So we want to add this one. When you do add it, you'll see here, if I open it up, you'll see it right there, mass actor poolable interface. If needed, we can remove it. But now on the left here, you have an interfaces drop down, and there's mass actor pooling, and there's the 3 things we added through that interface. We need to set up all 3 of them. Let's go with can be pooled first. So I'll double click this, and all it is returning a true or false statement. Can it be pooled? And we want to always be pooled, so we'll just turn this on. Basically, can it use this car and spawn it? I think is the best way I can describe it. And since we do, it needs to be on. And then I need to do prepare for pooling and prepare for games. So I'll just double click on both of these and I'll create new events here in the event graph. I don't need all the other stuff here, so I'll just go ahead and delete them. And all I want to do here is, depending on which one it does, I'm going to set collisions. I'm going to drag out and search for set actor collision, or I guess set actor enable collision. And we're going to do that for both of these. The only difference is when you prepare for game, we were turning on the collision, and you're doing pooling, it's off for collision. I wish I could tell you why and how, but unfortunately there's so little documentation, I couldn't actually figure out why specifically it used to be this way. But you can play around with it and see if you get different results. But I know that this will work, and that's kind of the main thing here. I just need it to work, and then we can adjust after. So fantastic. We have all the events. We had the interface set up. We have the wheels and the body set up here in the constructor script, and everything is placed in here as normal. There is one little thing though that I didn't do yet, and that is the fact that this car, because it's from Kenny, is Y forward. I want to make sure that my car is X forward. So what I'm going to do is add a scene component, just a regular scene here, and then I'm going to put the body and all of the wheels underneath the scene component, just so I can go ahead and select the scene component, rotate it -90 degrees, and snap the car in X forward. And then I can take all of these static meshes again and just drag them back onto the root and delete the scene component. So effectively, I just use the scene component to make sure that the wheels all stayed in place relative to the car, but now it's all facing X forward, which you can see here in the bottom left corner. And with that, the car is complete. Keep this window open though. You're going to need some measurements from here in a bit. At this point, we need to set up a data asset that's going to house the actual car information. So let's right click, go to miscellaneous, and grab ourselves a data asset here. And as you might imagine, it's under mass. You have quite a few of these. The one we want is the top one, mass entity config asset. Entity is just a thing. So we're configuring effectively the car using this. So go ahead and hit select. I'll call it something like DA underscore car entity, and I'll open it up. So in here, we can go ahead and open up the config. And now we'll see we have a parent class if we need one, and we have traits. So these are the unique stuff for this car entity. We're going to need a few traits here. Specifically in my case, I'm going to need 4. Now, this is very important. At the very least, when starting out here, just copy the traits. The values will be different for you, most likely, depending on the car you're using, but just copy the traits because some of these, and I'll make sure to mention which ones, at least from my experience, will cause Unreal to crash if you do not have them. Like I said, I crashed a lot trying to just get this thing to work fine. So let me show you the traits you need to add for this car. The first one is LOD collector. So just a regular LOD collector. We grab that. We can keep it on by default. This is required for one of the other traits that we have down here. The next one we need is the traffic vehicle visualization. As you might imagine, kind of important for the traffic system to be able to visualize it. So go ahead and add that in. This is basically what controls what is seen from the car. What car is being seen. If you added the driver one, it'd be what driver is being seen, etc. And here under low res template actor, that's where we plug in our car. So go ahead and select the car in the content browser here and just click the arrow to fill in the car as the low res template actor. If you have a high res template actor, you would put it here, of course, but we're only using the low res one. Because we only have the low res, under parameters here, we can open up parameters LOD representation, and you will see here, depending on the LOD, it will choose a specific one. I'm going to set low res spawned actor for all of these. So just like this, all low res spawned actor. So no matter what, it will be using this car. If it is off, leaving it on is just fine. And by the way, down here under LOD params, if you open up the base LOD distances, this would be the distances at which it would be swapping to the different LOD representations that you have. So if you do have different levels of cars at different distances, you can set it up. So that way it will swap to different vehicles depending on the distance. Higher res version, a lower res version, however you'd like. So you can see here's the base LOD distance and the visible LOD distance. And these can be tweaked. Again, we're using all the same LOD. So in our case, it's fine. You can even limit how many of a certain LOD there are. So if it is high, 10, 40, and then low and off effectively just is unlimited, might as well be. I'm pretty sure that's the int32 limit right there as the default values. Okay, we're good here. We can close down this index 1, which is our traffic vehicle visualization. We can just close that down. So that one is now set up to visualize our vehicle. The next one is the traffic vehicle simulation, because we now have a way of seeing the car. Well, it needs to know the logic of actually simulating the car. So it needs the traffic vehicle simulation. In here under parameters, if you open it up, you will see half length, half width, front axle X, and rear axle X. So you can see here, it is assuming that it's going forward in X as default but Unreal. But basically you want to plug in your values. So if I come back here, the front axle and the back axle is quite easy. You just select one of the wheels and I'll see it is positive 70 in X and negative 70 in X for the front and rear axle. The front axle X 70, rear axle X negative 70, of course adjusted to whatever your car is set up as. Again, might not be a big deal here because we're not using the high res version, which rotates the wheels at all. But again, I'm showing you stuff to set up how you should kind of start getting used to setting it up if you want to use it and eventually go to the high res versions where you do have all of the stuff. And the half length and half width are based off the length and width of the car. So what I can do is with this mesh selected, I can go ahead and open it so we can see the static mesh view. And then in the top left corner here, approximate size 150 by 255 by 114. Now again, this is Y forward, so 255 is the length. So it's from bumper to bumper is 255 and 150 is the width. So that's rear view mirror on one side to the other. So we basically need to take these values and divide them by 2 because it states half length. Or you can see here in the description, distance from the vehicle origin to the frontmost point or rearmost point, whichever is greater, used for vehicle avoidance collision detection. My pivot is right in the center, so it's the same value in either case. But as it states there, if you have your vehicle's pivot point not in the center of the body, make sure you take whichever one is greater. And it's the same thing for half width. So in my case, I'll do 128, which is 256. just so I don't have to do fractions, and 75 for the 150. Now over here under physics vehicle template actor, this is where you would actually plug in the thing that would control the wheels and things of that nature. And I'll show you the actor that we need to create for the kind of the high res one if you want to plug it in. But just know that at least by default, if you don't do anything except create it, Unreal will just crash. So again, leave it alone for now. We can look into further stuff down the line. But if you want to create one, what you can do is go to right click, blueprint class, and open up all classes and search for wheel. And here you can see under pawn, wheeled vehicle pawn. I'll go ahead and select it. I'll just call it BP wheeled vehicle pawn because it's just going to be here for demonstration. But if I open it up, you will see here, we have the vehicle movement component already here, and it takes a skeletal mesh. So not only does it skeletal mesh, but it has anim classes, the mesh assets, skin cache usage, because it is just a regular skeletal mesh. But as to what you would need to set up here on the vehicle, if you need it to be a skeletal mesh for a vehicle, I'm not sure. I haven't been able to get that far in. I only just started. But this is the parent class that I found, that once we have this created in the data asset, you'll see here on the drop down, there is the BP wheeled vehicle pawn. Again, I will not select it or I will crash. I probably just need very specific setups for it to work, and I can look into those if you guys are interested. Just let me know if you are by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. So that's all we need here for the traffic vehicle simulation. We can close that one up. One left to go. And now we have one that's called assorted fragments here near the top. Mass agent feature, which appends a list of specified fragments. Basically, from my understanding, this is just small components that the other pieces need in order to operate. If you have none of these, it will crash. If you don't have like one of these, it might tell you why it doesn't work, but most likely it will crash. Do you see a pattern here that I'm talking about? I crashed so much. But basically, I need 4 fragments here. I'm gonna have the mass traffic driver visualization fragment, the mass traffic random fraction fragment, the mass traffic vehicle lights fragment, and the mass traffic debug fragment. Now, a big one here is some of these like lights and driver visualization ones, which we don't have anything about lights or drivers here. Fun fact though, let's say you remove the lights one. You're not doing anything with lights. Unreal will crash when you hit simulate. That's right. Don't have the lights one, crash. No explanation, just crash. Set these up, as I keep saying, exactly the way I do. And then once it's working for you, play around with them. You can start experimenting. At least you'll know you have a solid working place to go from. Well, that's all we need here. These 4 setups, these 4 traits, we don't need to do anything in the parent. This is all good. We can go ahead and save it. And in terms of the car, it's pretty much set up. So now we need to set up kind of the zone graphs, which is kind of like the road connection system that Unreal uses to show where the lanes are. Those can be found under Edit, Project Settings. If you scroll down past the engine, all the way at the bottom of the engine, you'll see here Zone Graph. Go ahead and select it. And here you can see Lane Profiles. We want a new lane profile. Let's go ahead and add one. I'm going to make it pretty descriptive. I'll say 2 lane 350. The 350 will make sense in just a second because we'll add 2 lanes because there's one going forward and one going backwards. We can change the direction of the second one to be backwards. So we'll go forward and back. And you'll see here it has a width. Basically, how wide is your lane from the center? Let's say this is the middle lane, and here cars go this way, and here cars go this way. Well, at a certain point, right, we have the end of this lane on either side. And basically, we need to know this distance and half of it. So that way we could say this distance right here to kind of the center of the lane is whatever distance that is. And in my case, based on the lanes I was using from Kenny in my CityGen tutorial that I've been doing, the value there is 350. So the width here on forward, I'll say 350, and back 350. The nice thing is you can change the width per lane. So if you have a setup where one side is just very wide and one side isn't, easily adjustable. Now, if you open up tags, you'll have a bunch of different tags. I'll just be using the default one. You can rename it. You can see it is using the default tag here. You can see it from the drop down. We can add more. We don't need more in this case. We're just using one lane type. But if you have some lanes for vehicles, some lanes for something else, some lanes for something else, like for example, if you're doing pedestrian crossings versus commercial vehicles versus large vehicles, etc., you can tag them and kind of organize this. I'll go ahead and just leave it on default. I'm fine with this. You'll see this come up later, so you'll see where it is controlled. The one thing to note though here is the build zone graph while editing. By default, this is false. I'm going to keep it false for now, but my high recommendation is enable it. And I will show you why shortly once we start setting up the zone graph, why I'm saying to enable it, because you'll thank me for it. But for now, I'm keeping it disabled for demonstrations only. And you can play around with the build settings once you're more comfortable, like snapping distances, drag endpoints. You can tweak these values. I'm going to keep everything in default though. So now let's go ahead and start adding in the lanes. So it knows where the lanes are and kind of the routes it can take. So when I hit this drop down here to add something, I'm going to search for zone. And you'll see here a few zone things. We want a zone shape. Go ahead and click it. And now you'll see there it is. You can see on one side, arrows in one direction, and another side, arrows the other direction. If I go ahead and deselect this, it goes away. I did not hit game mode. I just deselected it. If I reselect it, it appears. Even if I go in the top right corner here, hit this eye icon and enable navigation or hit P and I deselect it, it goes away. This right here is why I say you should enable automatic building of the zone graphs as you modify it instead of what this is. Because right now, if I wanted to place another one and tell it to connect, I don't see this. So what I need to do is go to build and click build zone graph. When I do that, this appears. And even if I have nothing selected, I can see this actual outline. So now if I take it, I can modify it. And you can see here, it has extruded. And if I deselect it, all of that is gone because I need to go back to build zone graph. And now I actually see the full thing. So again, edit project settings, go to the zone graph and enable this build zone graph while editing. Turn that on. And now if I come here and I select it and I click one of these points and just drag it over, it will automatically rebuild it, and if I deselect it, I'll still see it. If it wasn't for the fact that it vanishes when not selected, I would say it's fine. You don't need to constantly rebuild. That seems silly, and it does seem silly. But the fact that you cannot see it when it's not selected is kind of insane. I don't know how you're meant to connect things to things you cannot see. But if you enable that, thankfully, it's usable. One thing I'll also do is just select the ground here, and I'll just replace the material with floor. Just MI floor 01 that comes default, just so we can see this better. And I'll hit the perspective camera here, turn off the game settings, and I'll put the EV100 to something like -2. This is just for the viewport. Effectively, you can always go back to game settings to see how it actually looks, and it'll do the camera auto adjustments. This is just so we can see these lines and the borders much better. So okay, we have this piece. We have the zone shape. I can go ahead and click these points on the end, and it's like a spline. I can just drag out and then hold Alt and drag out another one. And just like a regular spline, you can see here, we can just drag this out and put it like this. Now, you might want to set it up like this, where you have a full circle around, and it goes back on itself, and it's just a big loop. You can't do that. A single path cannot loop back on itself. It can go to another path that then loops back on the first one, so you can create a loop that way, but a single spline cannot make a full loop. The other thing you cannot do is have dead ends. So if you want to have a dead end road where cars just go back around, you need to make sure you add in that loop backwards so it doesn't just end like this, basically, where it's a dead end here and a dead end here. If you have these dead ends, it will have issues. And by the way, these are all hard corners. Cars won't actually follow the hard corners this way. They'll still kind of curve around it and not properly follow them. If you do want them to be curved though, you can just click on these points or Control-Shift-Click to select multiple of these. So I can, for example, select all of these points. And then in the detail panel here, you'll see here under type for selected points, instead of sharp, you can go Bezier. And now we have Bezier curves. And now you can click one of the points, move it around, and you can even adjust the Bezier curve here accordingly. So you can do something like this if you wanted to. In my case, I'll go ahead and set up something a little more simple. I'll go back to the basic zone graph, just the default one here. I just want to set a few things up. In the detail panel, you'll see a lane profile goes to their default 2-lane 350. You can click to reverse the lane profile, although clicking this doesn't actually do anything, it seems. The arrows don't change, cars still go the same way, so I'm not 100% sure what it's doing. But based on the description, I thought it would reverse the directions. Doesn't, so well, hopefully find out later. Shape point type here is a spline. We can make it a polygon and we'll use that shortly. And here you can see tags, it's empty. We'll set it to be default. And that's where you see this blue now has made the border of this blue. So if we do none, it goes back to a black border because that is the default color. Default makes the border blue so you can quickly see which lanes are which. To know if it's a blue lane, it's for these cars. I don't think it does anything past that, but I could be wrong. So let's start setting up a kind of a basic system here. I'm going to go ahead and just make a large segment here. I'm going to deselect it and then Alt drag and copy it, let's say over here, a little bit over. Then I'll make another segment at 9 degrees here and kind of make a shorter segment here and Alt drag and make another one. Again, just imagine not being able to see the other ones you don't have selected. You would never be able to figure out where to place these to know what kind of curves you want. So now we have these though. Let's go ahead and add in the connections to how to do they connect here? How does it go from one end to the other? Well, I can again just grab one of these zone graphs. I'll drag, make a copy of it. And now for this one, instead of this normal lane one, I'm going to go here in the detail panel and change from spline to polygon. Now that it's a polygon, I can move one of these points, and if I hold Alt here, you will see it is creating a polygon. We don't need a polygon, we really just need the 2 points, so I'll undo that. And then with this point selected in the detail panel, we can change the type here from sharp or Bezier to now a lane profile. And you'll see it gets this really wide section. We do the same thing on the other one. With it selected, we can do lane profile. And you'll see this kind of curved section here that now is trying to create a path from one of these to the other. You can take these points and kind of rotate them around. You can see here, it is trying to kind of go around itself. If I go this way though, the curve is correct. Why I need to flip it back on itself, I don't know. I don't know why that is the default, but it is. So watch out for how these are actually visualized. If they look like they're kind of looping back on itself, it might need to be reversed in the kind of which one goes on left, which one goes on the right. But with that in there, we can now just grab one of these points, and now we need to place it here to connect it. So I'll just place it around here and then rotate it like so. Now, if I just detach it here, a few things I want to point out. Right over here, at the very end of this, you'll see this kind of triangle shape. It is gray. If I go a little bit closer, it turns white. And if I let go and then move this a little bit forward, a little bit back, you can see none of these are moving because they're now connected. If I go further, you can see they're separated out. So as soon as you see this white, you know you place it fine or good enough for this connection. You can, of course, rotate it to be even straighter. But as soon as you see this light up, instead of being this gray, you know you've placed it. Which again, very helpful to have that auto recompute enabled so you can immediately visualize this. So now we have that, we can go ahead and do the same thing here. So just take this, move it over here, angle this piece. And again, you can see here it is gray. But as soon as I place it right over here, you can see it turns white. And if I take a look, we could see that, okay, it is now curving from one to the other. Maybe I have made this a little bit too steep. So maybe I'll just move this one a little bit further out and then go back here and then click on this triangle basically. And then again, move it over. And as soon as it clicks, you can see visually, it looks like it all is connecting and these are following through. So now that we have this one piece, I hold Alt, drag it over, rotate it 9 degrees. Don't try to place it here like this. You can. You see here, I got it to line up. Really place it somewhere in the general area and then click on these triangles and then move them into position, just like so. Again, for the white triangle here is what you're looking for. And we do the same thing on the other two. And there we go. We have all of these connected. Okay. One thing you can change, by the way, if you don't want it to be curved like this, is if I select only the corner pieces in the detail panel here under polygon routing type is Bezier. I can change that to arcs. And if you see, it is now considerably straighter and sharper here. So this is arcs and this is Bezier. So I'll have mine on Beziers and then we can go with this. Now I'll go ahead and set it up so the cars will start spawning, at least on this loop, so we can start looking at them. And then I'll show you how to set up just some basic T intersections here. I say basic, but the basic way of doing it doesn't work. We'll get to it. To spawn these, we need something called a mass spawner. So search for mass spawner here and go ahead and grab it. You can see there's a lot of people there. You can put it anywhere in the world. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is the settings here. Under spawn, we could specify how many do we want to spawn. Let's spawn 20 cars. Under entity types, we need to specify what is it spawning. And we have the car entity that we created. And we can tell it the proportion of this car entity compared to other ones if we have more. So for each car, you would need to set this up. So that's all for entity types. Now we need the spawn data generator. We'll go ahead and plus here. As you might guess, we need the mass traffic vehicle spawn data generator. We're not making trailers. They're not parked vehicles. It's not an intersection setup. It is just a vehicle spawn data generator. And then we can open it, open the mass vehicle spawn data generator here. And here we can specify vehicle type spacings. If we open this up, we can specify entity types that are allowed. So for example, we could say only this one is allowed here. I'm just using the default here. I don't want to customize per vehicle type. In my case, I'm using one car. If I had multiple, maybe I would set it up per car, but honestly, the ones that we have set up already, I think are fine. And the point of this tutorial is just to get you up and running, not to show you everything, mostly because I don't know everything yet. We'll get there. I'm going to leave these at default for now, but we will be revisiting these settings. So go ahead and save, and I'll press Alt-S to simulate, or you can click this triangle button here. And like you'll see here, we have cars moving. And already you will see, yeah, they're just stopping, huh? Remember how I said that I ran into many issues? I cannot explain to you how long I was fighting this. Why are they stopped here? Basically, well, I could kind of explain it to you in a way. If I just come here and change the count of cars here to, let's say, 5, and then I simulate again. And now, oh, it didn't stop, it didn't stop, it didn't stop. Hey, look, these 5 cars are moving. Nice. There's no issues here. They're going across everything. So what happened? There were too many cars. It seems like, effectively, what's happening, from my understanding of playing around with this, is cars need a certain distance in front of them before they start going. And this distance here, from this point to the next car, wasn't big enough, so it was waiting, like in traffic, for the car to move. Now, after playing around with all the settings, I still haven't figured out how to make cars move in like bumper-to-bumper style traffic. I want to figure that out, but I haven't been able to. Another one for down the line. But you can see here, these cars have been moving during the entire time I've been talking without any issue. And occasionally you see this one slowed down a little bit. What we can do though is change these settings here in the detail panel for the mass spawner. I did mention we're going to come back to it. I'm going to change the default space here to 750. The default space is basically the spacing between every car as it's spawned in. So that way it can't spawn them way too close together, which if one stops and it starts creating a bottleneck can cause issues. The next one I'm going to change here is the minimum and the maximum gap between spaces. I'm going to say minimum is 500 and maximum is 1500. Again, just playing around with values, that seemed better. And now if I crank this up, let's say 50 and simulate, well, let's take a look. We have cars stuck here. So this one is too small of a distance. You can see here, they're now stuck only on the inner one, but on the outer one, they're fine. There's no issue. They'll slow down a little bit, but then they'll continue on because that car has moved along just fine. And by the way, if you're thinking, well, hold on, what if we set this to 500 and change the minimum gap between spaces? Because maybe that's why it stops here, because it's thinking, oh, the spacing here is between 500 and 1500. So the spacing here is just too far. Well, let's say 50 to 150. We'll divide that by 10 on both. And I hit simulate. We just got more cars. Yep, you just got a bunch more cars and now they're in a deadlock. Everything has stopped. I have not been able to find where that distance is controlled because it's not here clearly. So the main thing is we got cars moving along the track. I'm just going to give myself a bit more room though. So I'll just take this and just drag it to the left so we have a bit more room. And again, I'll take this piece, just drag it to the left. And again, make sure it kind of snaps together. White triangle. Do the same thing on both. If I made this wider, for example, I just made it like this, we'll be able to actually have more cars, not just because we have more track because it's covering a bigger area, but because the distance between these points are longer. They basically slow down and stop at the ends of these. So if only from this point to the next one is a bigger distance, so the cars can move out of the way more. These are all connected. Alt S, we can play and we can see them all moving now. And you can see here, this car has stopped, but once this car got all the way here, it started moving. And you can see here on the inner one, again, same problem. It's just this distance was not far enough. One thing that we can do though is instead of doing that, we can increase the distance of this segment. So what I'm going to do is shorten the shorten the straights here because I think they're quite large now already. So I'll bring them all in. Okay, just like so. And by the way, if you fly out too far, the actual display here disappears. And I'll go into the corner pieces here and I'll reconnect them with the new distance, basically giving it a larger curve here to connect. Again, white triangle. So the distance here on all of these curves becomes a lot bigger. And you can see here the curves now are much bigger. If I hit simulate, we can take a look and see if any of them cars stop. And you can see here with the bigger turn radius, we now have no issues where we had issues before. So this is working nice. And again, if we want to, I guess like the corner pieces, by the way, and change it from Bezier to arcs so we can see what happens when it's kind of this shape. Again, simulate. You can see here, the main thing here is distance. Distance of every single one of these segments. So even though it has a sharp corner there, we have no issues moving around this entire place. So now that we kind of understand that we either need larger sections here or we need less cars, so the distance between each car effectively is less, we can now play around with adding some T intersections. So I'll add one in right over here, kind of connecting from here to here. So if they want to, they can go this way or the other way around. All I'm going to do is take one of the shapes. I'm just going to alt drag it out. And now let's take a a look. So if I take one of these points, one thing you might have noticed is up top it says auto zone shape connection. Hold C and drag the zone shape endpoint close to another shape connector to connect, or auto zone shape intersection, hold X and drag zone shape endpoint close to another shape to create an intersection. If I hold down X and just drag, you'll see I get this circle. And when I get close enough here, you can see this red dot right here. If I now let go, it has created an intersection here. And I can do the same thing here. Hold X, move, move, move. I can come here, maybe let go over here, and it's created intersection. Okay, that's pretty good. It has done all the work for me. Let's hit play and let's see what happens. Oh, that car has stopped. Oh no, and that car has now stopped. Those cars have now stopped. Yeah, that doesn't work. The default intersections, because as I just explained, we need distance of every segment, just causes effectively a grid stop across the entire place. So I'll go ahead and undo this. And what I'm going to show you is how to create your own custom T intersections. So what I'll do is I'll just take this and just make a copy over here. And what I want to do is in the detail panel, which is your spline to polygon again, I'll kind of adjust these points to be a little bit closer together because this is going to be our intersection. And if you recall, when we hold Alt and make a new point, it creates this kind of triangle shape. Now, before we used 2 of those to create this connection. Well, using 3 of them, we can select all of them here and change the type to lane profile. Again, rotations are way wrong. So let's go ahead and select one of these, rotate it, rotate the other one, and rotate the last one here. And you need to make sure you rotate them in the correct way. You can see here, it's going out. So if you rotate it this way, this one's going out as well. So this needs to be this way, and same thing here. This one was issue. You can see what's happening, right? They don't work this way. So really what needs to happen is they need to flip sides once again. 1, 2, and you can see here, we now have an intersection where we have a larger area for each one, and it's working quite nice. If I hold Alt and make another one here and make it like so, we can make a 4-way intersection. And again, it's just so much bigger than with the intersection that we created here. And again, distance here matters, as you saw with these segments. So I'll keep it to the 3-way intersection. And what we need to do now is put them in right here. Now we're going to need more room. So what I'm going to do is just move these pieces to the side, move these pieces also to the side. Let's move these over. Again, watch for these triangles. I'll keep repeating it because it's that important. And now we can just go ahead and just move these a little closer and then take our actual T intersection here, rotate it, and then position it roughly to line up with ours. You can see here, I've made it kind of crooked, but that's okay. I can straighten these out and then just take the points and connect it. You can see here it snaps together. Now I can also take it, copy it, and snap it here on the other side. Okay, this one's a little bit off, so I might need to adjust this one instead. Let's see here, now it's snapped together all the way to the end here. And now we can do the same thing on the other side. Copy to the other side, flip it 180, snap it together, make a copy of it, the other side, and look how nice it is. It's so nice to have that auto recalculate on instead of having to build every time. You just visually just quickly see when it snaps. Now, one downside is I cannot select these from the viewport. No matter what I try, I can't click on these to select them. I have to go and find which one is which in the outliner and basically just go down the list and then, oh, there we go. Now I found the one. So a little bit of a downside on that one. Maybe I would name these. So just a heads up. Either name these or keep track of them somehow. There we go. So now we have a connection here. We have connection everywhere. And it's a nice large area. So now let's see if I hit simulate. Here's what happens. Now, all of these cars, as you can see, are going through this T intersection just fine. There's no longer an issue because it's no longer a tiny little intersection. It's now considerably bigger. So that's working really well. And by the way, if you're wondering, I can select these 2 T intersections and under polygon routing type, instead of Bezier, select arcs, right? And it gets these sharper curves. And now if I hit simulate with this, it has the sharper curves, but it's still, as you can see from this, is moving across them without any issues. So we finally got the sharper corner we had before, but now because these sections are bigger and there's then plenty of room for the cars in front, we're not getting any stopping anywhere here. At this point, I can go ahead and play with a little bit with this spacing. Maybe I could try 750 for spacing here. See if I can have a few more cars. This still seems fine. Let's drop the minimum gap between spaces to like 750 and 1500. Hit play. This is probably going to be too much, but maybe not. You can see here, we got more cars still. Over there, you might have seen that it's like a car crash happened. But again, because each segment here is big enough and there's plenty of room, even when cars get relatively close together, it's still working fine. fine. Maybe we can go even lower. Let's say 1,500 for minimum and max here. Because our segments are now considerably bigger, even the T intersections here, right? We're getting even more cars. So end of the day, really, I guess it just comes down to the size of these segments and making sure there's enough road between each one. This is set to 250 and 500, and I increased the count of cars here to 100. And you can see it's still moving. It's now definitely a lot slower, and they're quite packed now. You can see the distance here is relatively consistent. Now, is this system perfect? No, of course not. What we created was just effectively moving boxes in some kind of logic and along a track. But it is working, and cars are moving, which, considering how big this plugin is, I think is still an achievement. From here, there's still so much of this plugin. I feel like I only did like 1% of what this plugin can do. So there's a ton still left to figure out and kind of get into. If it is something that you guys want me to look into further, please let me know in the comments below, and which part of this plugin kind of interests you the most. Multiple lanes, high-res cars, whatever it is, I am very curious to know. And as always, the project file for this will be available on my Patreon, where you can join these wonderful people here and supporting what I do. It really means a lot. And if you'd like to join the community, the link to the Discord and everything is down in the description below, as always. And I'll make sure to include the plugins that come with the project, so you don't have to download the city sample yourself. But if you're curious where I'm going to be taking and putting these cars eventually, I suggest checking out my City Gen series, which you can check out right over here, because eventually I'll be putting these cars in it.